Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Chris Lee. Commodore fans, on your feet. It's time to anchor down.
Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast, presented by Dr. Jody Jones, DDS. We are part of the 440 Sports Network. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today will be Luke Wyatt. We will talk about Vanderbilt's NIT win over Michigan to get to the Final 8 of that event and a 3-game sweep of top 5 Ole Miss in baseball. Luke appears on the guest line that is presented by Michael Kendrick of the Kendrick Group. Michael is a local carpenter and a lifelong Vanderbilt fan. He builds bookshelves, cabinets, picture frames, furniture, and made-to-order items, including a display case for my prized Dale Murphy jersey. I've seen Michael's work. He's a true craftsman. If you are in the market for custom woodwork, give Michael a call at 615-830-9458. The question and answer session is presented by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call at 615-846-6200 to see what your rights are and if they can help. Couple things before we begin today's episode with Luke. First of all, we try to do about 3, sometimes 4 episodes a week. You've noticed lately we've been down to 1. That has just been due to schedule and personal things going on in my life. It has been just a crazy March. The schedule was always going to be crazy. You add in a couple of personal things and a scheduled family trip out west, and that's just what it's been. My apologies. We do the best we can here, and that's all the time I've had available. Now, as you can tell in my voice, I've gotten sick on top of that, so episodes with Luke usually go about an hour. I made that deliberately shorter today so I can get over this cold or whatever it is that I've got. I've got spring ball to cover hopefully Tuesday if I can get there and if I'm feeling well enough. We've got the NIT to go over. We've got baseball this coming weekend. So anyway, going to try to get back to the 3-a-week schedule this week. What I'm hoping to do is have a podcast with Joey Dwyer on basketball, maybe the morning after the NIT game with UAB, and then probably do something with Chip Frederick after the midweek baseball game heading into the series with Mississippi State this weekend. So that's the plan, but it's been the case for basically this entire month. Sometimes life intervenes, and we just do the best we can under those circumstances. Anyway, my apologies. We have not had these out more regularly, but that's what's been going on. And with that, here's today's episode with Luke Wyatt. Luke Wyatt joins us. It is Monday morning. A lot to talk about, Luke. Vanderbilt has advanced in the NIT with the win over Michigan and gotten a phenomenal series win over the defending national champion Ole Miss Rebels in baseball, that being at Hawkins Field. Lots to talk about today. I'm not sure how long I can go. You can hear my voice. I'm playing at less than 100% today, but we'll give it a go. And Luke, thanks for joining us today.
No problem. Glad to. And it's been a successful week for the Commodores in a lot of ways. And got one more home game in basketball, and then head to Starkville to book in this Mississippi series, and hopefully things will continue. It was a lot of fun over on West End this weekend.
Were you at the basketball game?
I was. And then I walked into the baseball game right as Enrique was flying to deep right center for the first play, so I didn't miss anything hardly.
The crowd sounded good on TV. Also sounded like there were a good number of Michigan fans there.
It was probably, I think they announced it at around 8,000. There was probably 1,500 Michigan, and the rest was Vanderbilt. Now, it's like everything. Those fans are always grouped together, so they sound louder when things are going well, but it was definitely a dominant 85 to 90% Vanderbilt fans.
Well, great win for Vandy. Comes from behind, 8 points in the final minute. It just
58 seconds.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Chris, if they had, and I sat with my friend Darryl Lovell, and we were talking about, it looks like we're going to have to press or we're not going to get back in this game. And sure enough, as soon as we did, their backcourt, I know they were missing a couple players, and it showed because they had 3 turnovers in 4 possessions, and that's what it took for us to get back in the game, and made all the free throws there at the very end, and Also, the key, I think, was moving Jordan Wright on Dickinson because we had no answer for him, as we don't for any big with Liam out. But, man, Jordan fought him and kind of disrupted his timing a little bit. And just that little bit of disruption was all it took for us to pull that victory out.
Yeah, Dickinson was just really something to contend with. But here's another game where they get out rebounded 39-3 and managed to sneak one out.
Yeah, well, and I think they're going to face the same thing Wednesday. UAB very strong inside. They've got one guard, the Jelly kid, that is really impressive, and if he gets on a roll, he can beat you himself. They beat FAU, who's still in the tournament, NCAA tournament, and they've beaten a couple of SEC teams, South Carolina and Georgia, I think. So that's going to be the toughest of the three we've played.
The formula for victory has kind of been the same lately. It's been Ezra Mannion, Tyron Lawrence, and sometimes Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright didn't have a big statistical impact offensively, but you mentioned the defense, and that just seems like what Vanderbilt is riding with right now with the occasional Colin Smith contribution.
Yeah, and it's basically, I've always said you got to have the third scorer. Well, it's kind of been a combination of a third scorer. Like the first half the other day was Colin Smith. He started out red hot, cooled off, but as long as that third guy, whether it be Colin or Jordan or Q getting 10, 12 rebounds, as long as there's a huge contribution somewhere from that third spot, then you got a chance there at the end. And, you think, well, these close wins, at some point you're going to lose one of them, but they have not, and they've been just so resilient. And to get to 22 wins, we'd never thought that a couple months ago, that's for sure.
Well, it used to seem like every time there was a close game in that building, they would win it. And it seemed like for most of the last decade, every time there was a close game, it was maybe not even a toss-up. It just seemed like the other team would figure out a bucket. They're in a run right now where they feel almost like they're invincible in that building.
Yeah, and they had a good look. Michigan had a good look at it at the end. They missed a little floater. And then I forget who it was. It may have been Jordan, but somebody was up there, maybe Tyron, fighting with Dickinson, or he would have had another tap in to win the game. So because there was time left on the clock when he tapped it up.
Explain the Paul Lewis minutes roller coaster to me. I mean, I guess it's not a big roller coaster because the most he's played since that Alabama blowout has been 18 minutes. And maybe it's the -9+ rating that explains it, but I thought that Paul Lewis would have been playing more than 4 minutes in a game like that.
I will say this, and again, I was sitting with my friend Daryl, and we both discussed it, and Daryl's a very good basketball mind. He's coached AAU, and I asked him, I said, what do you think of he said, well, Luke, think about it. Paul Lewis has come in and give up 9 points just like that. And he did. Yeah. His defense was very poor. I know he hit a three, which helped that, but his defense was not good, and Coach Stackhouse noticed that immediately and got him out. For whatever reason, he wasn't moving his feet or whatever. But no one on the bench really helped a whole lot Saturday. That's the thing. They did it. Dort is still, whether it be rust or still not ready to contribute, he didn't look really good. Malik comes in and starts hunting a shot, so he's got some maturity that he's got to really work on. It's those 5 guys, and Trey Thomas gets a lot of minutes just because I know people get upset because of Trey being so smallish, and he is a liability at times. But man, he at least knows where to go, where to be. Believe it or not, he can box out as little as he is. He usually does the right thing. He's just so strapped with that. He doesn't have much athleticism, and that hurts him a lot. But that's why he gets more minutes, I think, the more I watch it. Because I think the other day, Lewis would have gotten more minutes had he had played better when he was in there.
I think what's amazing is that you take Liam Robbins off this team and you're like, okay, there goes their go-to guy. Well, now you have 2 guys that have stepped up as go-to guys in Lawrence and Mannion, which has to make people more bullish on next year. I still don't know what kind of team they're going to be next year. I want to see how they run out the roster. But you can at least now start to make an argument that they can be a pretty good ball team depending on how things break. Now, one thing I'm watching is that the Chris Ledlam kid from Harvard who's interested in them. That would seem to be a perfect guy to plug and play with this roster. You still need a big man somewhere, but like rebounding, they get out rebounded 39-23 Saturday. Ledlam averaged, I think, 8 or 9 boards a game at Harvard last year.
Yes.
You can start to, barring something unexpected, like if you lose a Colin Smith, or I think Lewis can really help them too. You've brought me aboard that train. The defense is going to need some fixing, but you can see the flashes of offense. There's now a makeable case that this is a respectable roster, if not something more than that next year, depending on how these pieces break with returnees and such.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see any reason why there shouldn't be an NCAA team next year. I don't, unless they don't get a big man in the portal and you have Wright leave and you have, a couple of departures you're not expecting or something. I see this team doing very well. And it's just it's almost like, with Ezra, if you watched Ezra play, I mean, he's always been quick, obviously. But the confidence he now has when he's shooting the basketball, I mean, heck, he's making threes consistently right now. And
yeah.
I never thought that would happen because he's got kind of a funky shot. But if he continues to work on that and do some of the things he's been doing, and Tyron Lawrence has been just, I mean, he's played as good as anybody in this league for the last month.
Yeah, now I do wonder for him next year when he is all of a sudden the focus of scouting reports. I'm not going to say Lawrence hasn't been a good player for a couple of months, but I think the guy we can't let beat us is zero phenomenon is still fairly new. I do wonder what it looks like next year when he gets the attention that, say, Liam Robbins was getting before he got hurt.
Right. The thing with Tyron, I think, Michigan knew that was who could beat him the other day, and they didn't really. When he gets to the rim, he scores. He makes a lot of difficult shots. And just to be able to finish around the rim the way he and Ezra have done the last few games is just if they continue to play that way from here on and then next year, as long as you, like I said, as long as you don't get a lot of departures, you should be in good shape.
Well, the thing that makes Tyron a little tougher is he's a lefty.
Yep, that helps.
All right, let's talk baseball. I'll be honest. Held a gun to my head and said pick the series, I would have probably taken Ole Miss to win 2 of 3. Just didn't like the way the bats had looked. Ole Miss has got guys that can just mash. I thought, a couple long balls here and there, a couple innings with control that goes sideways. That team's got a good enough lineup to beat you. Not only did Vanderbilt win that series, Vanderbilt just clocked Ole Miss all weekend.
Dominated it, and I saw every pitch except, like I said, the first one, the Bradfield on Saturday. I'll be honest with you, that Ole Miss, first of all, let's start with Ole Miss. Their pitching, I know their best pitcher supposedly is out. I don't know his name.
Well, it's not supposedly he is. He's Hunter Elliott, yeah.
Yeah, Hunter Elliott. He's out. So you start there with their second best pitcher. But here's the thing. We were hunting fastballs. That's what when we get in trouble,
yeah.
And I've mentioned it before, we chase the slop. We take too many pitches that are strikes, that are fastballs down the pipe. We weren't doing that this weekend. We were super aggressive, started out that way Thursday, and it didn't really end. We didn't hit quite as well on Saturday, but that's because we were spoiled by the first 2 days. I mean, we had 20 runs and 30 hits in the first 2 days. That's crazy. In an SEC series against who supposedly was the number 3 team in the nation. Pitching was, again, great for us. Average winning the series by a score of 9-1. It's just, I would have never thought that. I was like you. I did think we could win 2 of 3, but I thought it would be a 5-4, 4-3 type games and nail biters at the end and hoping Maldonado could shut them down if he had a 1-run lead late. But it was never even any doubt. And our defense was just outstanding too this weekend.
Yeah, that's the best series I've seen them play in years. I mean, I don't even know that I'd have to go back and look at. I'm not even sure the 19 team had a series that good.
Well, I don't remember the last time we've swept a top 10 baseball team home or away.
It had been, someone had the stat, it had been a long time. It might have even been the first one Tim's ever done. I don't think that can't be right, but
Yeah, I
it's
would
been a
think so, but
minute.
maybe. Well, and last year, Ole Miss started this way. They got pounded by UT the first weekend series. So there's time for them to get things straight, and they do have the bats to do it. However, unless they get some arms to come around, their pitching's not good enough to win week in and week out.
Well, I'll tell you whose pitching was good enough. That was Vanderbilt's. Hunter Owen was phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
You could see it with him last year, and I've had a little bit of a discussion on the board. People didn't see it with Hunter Owen. I'm like, do you not remember what he was doing before he got hurt last year? And I'm going to presume when a guy drops off in performance right before he on the shelf for the year, I'm going to presume a lot of times that there was a lingering injury. When Hunter Owen was pitching well the first month last season, he looked elite. And, man, that's what that guy was against Ole Miss.
Yes. I think his longest stint had been, 5 innings coming into the game?
Sounds
so I was
right.
thinking we could get 5 out of him. Man, he limited his pitches. I mean, his strike to ball ratio is incredible. That's as good as you can be. I mean, you're not going. He's got nowhere to go but down from that performance. That was, except for being a perfect game or no hitter, that's about as good to handle a lineup as good as Ole Miss's. I mean, they came in with 7 of their 9 hitters were hitting over 300, and we just shut them down. And Hunter was, of course, good. I thought Carter was great on Thursday night, and then Devin did what you wanted him to do, get you to the bridge guy on Saturday. And then Maldonado come in, and he hasn't given up anything yet. So did give up a couple of line drives that were turned into a double play to end the game on one of them, and then Diaz made a great play on another one. So, again, the defense, the pitching, everything was there. Now, keeping that consistent for 27 more league games is unrealistic. But as long as they stay where they're chasing it, they're only striking out again 7 times a game, and that's still the same after a weekend series in conference play. As long as they keep that up, Chris, this team can be, they can reach that 17-13 for sure.
Yeah, I want to unpack the resume here in a little bit, but if you want to nitpick a little bit, Butrell gives up a couple home runs. Those are the only runs he gave up. And Holton had some balls hit hard off him where his defense bailed him out a little bit. So if you want to quibble around the edges with the pitching performance, there is that. But on the other hand, they walked 4 guys all weekend. They hit 1 hitter. You'll take that in a minute. They only gave up 2 doubles outside the 2 home runs. And I think most of all, we've talked about a lot of times we've done that count the innings, right? Who can get you through this and that? They used 6 pitchers all weekend, Luke. That's it.
I know. We still got 6 guys sitting over there that can get SEC outs. And that's the encouraging thing, is when you do have a situation where one of them can only go 3 innings or doesn't have it, you feel like you can still get through a game and win it with the guys in the bullpen. It's and I understand Dukanich now will be back possibly in a couple of weeks, and that the Horn kid who had disappeared, I guess, had an injury, and he's now day-to-day.
Yeah, Dukanich was not throwing a lot of strikes, which makes me wonder if whatever – and I haven't been able to go to the ballpark in weeks just because of personal schedules and now being ill, and just the wheel of life has taken a toll lately here. But, yeah, I always presume a lot of times when a guy's not throwing strikes at the rate that he is, that there's something going on. So I wonder if some rest will do him some good.
Yeah, and, a freshman like that, sometimes they, and I don't know this to be a fact, I'm just guessing here, they kind of want to hide an injury. So if he had tweaked something, he probably didn't tell the trainers maybe, and then he got out there and tried to fight through it and pulled that hamstring worse. So a lot of times as a freshman, you want to impress so much that you try to fight through something like that, and that may be part of his problem with not throwing strikes.
Yeah, you talked about the defense. Man, they locked it down all weekend. You had Bradfield running stuff down. You had Polk making a play or two in left that was a challenge. Diaz, I thought, was tremendous at third. Vastine has given them everything they need at short right now. Austin made a highlight reel grab or two with just his athleticism, reaching to get the ball. You had no hiccups at first base, which has been an issue at times. I don't know that you see a much better defensive weekend than what they just flashed.
No, you don't. Now, and I'll tell you somebody whose bat has come to life, and I feel like he's finally figured it out, is Jack Bulger.
Yeah, that was a big talking point coming out of the weekend.
Even when he made some outs, they were loud outs. He hit some line drives at people. And if he gets to hitting in that lineup, then you've got, and I said it before the season started, I felt like we may only have one guy hit 15, that would be R.J. Schreck. But you got a lot of guys hit 8 to 10 home runs. And so anybody can jump up and bite you in that lineup. That's the thing. I mean, 1 through 9. When you've got Vastine hitting 9th, now I know he struck out a little bit more lately, but if that's your 9-hole hitter, you're going to be okay, because the rest of those guys, they take turns, having great at bats. And Enrique, you can see, is starting to come around. It's not quite there, but he's up to around 250 hitting now. So he'll get that average up to 300. And when he's on base, we know how good Vanderbilt can be.
They were taking some violent hacks this weekend. I mean, every hitter's different, and Schreck's going to be a guy that walks a lot, walks as much as he strikes out. Bradfield's going to be a guy that does the same thing. And you're going to have Vastine, and he's going to be one of those guys, and Polk too, that are probably going to end up striking out a good bit. But, man, when they hit the ball, it's going to go away. Polk slugged 800 for the weekend. Vastine only slugged 455, but I remember he hit one that darn near got out in game 3. I mean, he's been scuffling a little bit, but you can see it coming back with them. And I think, look, that's the criticism for years was they struck out too much. I always said, look around. That's just the way baseball's played. I don't think that fans really get that. Lately, it's been they've not struck out as much, but some of these teams are striking out more and doing more damage when they connect because they're swinging harder. I think you've got a couple kids in that lineup in Vastine and Polk that just take their hacks. And when they connect, it can put a 3 spot on the board pretty quickly. And I feel like they've got a...
This season of the Vandy Sports Podcast has been made possible by my friend Dr. Jody Jones, DDS. When it comes to general or cosmetic dentistry services, Jody is the best in Nashville. Just check out his client list. It testifies to that. He sees movie stars, music stars, athletes, coaches, you name it. Jody is the dentist of choice for stars in Nashville, but he sees regular folks like you and I as well. What people love about Jody's office is the ambiance. It's relaxing, it's friendly. Someone described it to me as a tooth spa. Whether your needs are general or cosmetic, go see Jody today. Call him 615-270-2322. See him at 55 Music Square East, not far from downtown or the Vanderbilt campus. Jody is a former Vanderbilt football player and a huge Commodore booster, so go and talk Vandy sports with him while you're there. Go see Jody Jones today. Thank him for his support of this podcast, because without it, this season would not be possible.
Pretty good balance between a number of different type of hitters right now, especially with Polk hitting. Was he in the 8th spot all weekend? I don't remember.
Polk was 8 and Vastine was 9th.
Yeah, I mean those are not guys you want to see 8 and 9.
No, the one I don't know if it's criticism, but the one kind of scratch your head is why is Diaz batting cleanup? I don't know that matters too much to Ford. I think he likes to do is try to make it righty lefty as much as he can.
Yeah, he's been doing that all year.
He doesn't really care where they're plugged in. Yeah, and that's fine. I think that's a good plan. And to Diaz's credit, he's making a lot more contact than he did last year. At the end of last year, he was striking out a ton, but he's laying off of those slow breaking balls and not lunging as much as he used to.
Well, to me, it's not that Diaz was striking out a bunch last year. I'd have to go back and look at it. To me, the bigger issue was when he made contact, it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And Bulger had the same issue. Diaz had an at-bat where he hit about 900 feet worth of foul balls to left. And I think I want to say he got a single maybe later on the same at-bat. I don't remember. But that's the thing. I watch at bats a lot of times. Sometimes it's not always what you put on paper, but are you hitting the ball hard? And man, they were hitting some
Right.
loud balls all weekend. And I thought that Diaz, when he hit those two balls that were way out to left, if they'd just been fair, and I know baseball's not played that way, I thought, okay, this is a kid that it feels like something is starting to click here.
Yep. They're just too talented, and you look at where they were in their playing days in high school, and you think, man, these guys have, they can't miss. But we forget how much younger some of those kids are than some of the guys we play against. I mean, there are some 5 and 6 year guys in this league, and we're getting ready to see some of that pretty soon, I think.
Well, let's not forget Diaz was the guy that when Arizona took Jordan Lawler in the draft, Diaz was kind of that 11th round insurance policy in case Lawler didn't come to Arizona. And Lawler loved school. I think he would have loved to have been at Vanderbilt, and when you get offered $7 million or whatever it wound up being, $6 million, that's kind of hard to turn down no matter how much you like it. You can always come back to school later.
Yes.
Diaz was the guy that Arizona took in the draft just in case. Well, I mean, I'm sure they would have liked to have them both, but let's not forget he was a pretty highly regarded kid coming out of high school. And, the first month it didn't go so great. He had some defensive hiccups and everything, but man, it is really seeming to come together for that kid right now.
It really has. Another thing that was encouraging, Calvin Hewitt got an at bat and hit a rope, which was good to see. He had not even been making contact much, and he got a pinch hit single, or I guess he was a late defensive replacement and left and got a base hit himself. So they're going to need a guy. As the season goes on, you're going to need a guy like Hewitt or T.J. McKenzie or someone else to contribute at some point because you're going to get an injury or somebody get nicked up. And that was good to see.
I wanted to come back to Bulger because to me that might have been the most encouraging thing of the weekend. The way that he hit the ball, that home run was a line drive. He had 9 total bases on the weekend, hit a home run at First Horizon, which is not an easy place to get the ball out of, especially to the part of the park where he hit it. Yeah. It just seems like he looks like a completely different player. The power was supposed to be the carrying tool for him out of high school, and he's just been a guy that just is, for really most of the last 2 years, just hit one soft grounder after another. That looked more like the Bulger that was advertised when he got to Vanderbilt, and really the same Bulger. I feel like Jack hit some balls really hard right out of the chute when he first got here. And I don't know what's happened the last couple of years, but that guy looked like a different dude this weekend.
Well, and I think, Chris, you've brought this up before, and it's a point well taken. When you have kids who are super intelligent, which Jack is, sometimes they just overthink themselves.
Yeah.
Working on, when you get in there and you're working on your swing, trying to figure out where the hole is in your swing, and it just drives them batty because, everything's black and white and it's not working. But once they do figure it out, look out. And I hope that's what it is with Jack. I hope this, 3-game sample size is going to turn out to. And I will say this: I felt like defensively he was better this weekend. There weren't many balls getting by him. Last year seemed like a lot went off the edge of his glove and this type thing. The pace of play has improved the college baseball game more than I ever thought it
much.
Would. I absolutely love it. I watched Missouri and Tennessee yesterday, both games, just about every inning, every pitch, and I mean, it was just like boom, boom, boom. Here we go. I think it's great. I think the pace of play thing has been worked out great.
I feel like it is shaved 45 minutes off the games.
Yeah, I think the game was 40. I don't know. You may have the times in front of you, but every game was 3 hours or less, I think, this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And that's going to be really good for postseason. I think that's really going to help the game gain some popularity. But back to the hitting, one other thing before I forget to mention it. Not only do they get 27 runs this weekend, let's not forget, they didn't bat in the bottom because they were ahead in 2 of those games, and the other one was a 7-inning game where it was the same thing.
Right.
So Ole Miss only pitched 23 in 2/3 innings. Vanderbilt scored 27 runs. By the way, 26 of those were earned. So as good as those stats look this weekend, they're even better when you start digging in a little bit more. But I think the thing right now, you look up and down the lineup, Luke, and everybody is either hitting the ball pretty well right now, or it's, all right, we've seen this guy hit before. It's not really coming right now. The one exception is kind of Parker Nolan, who just kind of is what he is right now. But Parker can hit a heater for a weekend or two. And, if the other guys are all hitting, Parker Nolan is not going to be a liability in that lineup. I'm not suggesting he is, but I'm just saying you got, Shrek can hit, Bradfield can hit. You really haven't gotten much out of Bradfield so far compared to what you can get. I just continue to think he's not been playing at 100%. But we talked about Diaz and Bolger. We kind of know what Shrek is. Chris Maldonado's been hitting the cover off the ball since he got in the lineup.
He's been the X factor. He's the one that kind of got it going, for us.
Yeah, I mean, and you've still got, Vastine has been the best hitter on the team for stretches this year. You got kids on the bench like McKenzie and Hewitt who've hit at times. I mean, Hewitt's still probably a 900 career OPS guy. I don't know what's been going on with him lately where it's not been working, but RJ Austin's a guy who's certainly flashed. Hit a home run this weekend.
Yeah.
It was only 214 on base over the weekend, but we know that kid can hit. I think you have to look a lot more optimistically at the lineup now, given what you're seeing some kids doing and the history with the guys that maybe haven't hit at the level where you'd expect.
Yeah, just, again, we didn't see Ole Miss. They had guys that were throwing low 90s, but you didn't see any problems with the breaking ball this week. We laid off the junk, which we haven't done in some of those midweek games, and waited on that fastball. We were hunting fastballs, man. We haven't done that. We have not done that. I don't know if it's a change in strategy or just because it was the SEC weekend. But, man, we were uber aggressive.
Yeah, I wasn't there, just heard the second hand. I heard Corbin got into them pretty good after the third game against LMU. Maybe that
I can see that.
Maybe that made a difference.
I can see that.
And he is being excruciatingly patient with this bunch. So I say that like they've been playing poorly. Man, they're 16-5. We said before the season, you look at that schedule, you catch a couple bad breaks. This could have been a team that was 11-12,
Yes.
13-10, something like that, with a couple games that don't go your way. They've got wins over UCLA, which is the number one RPI team in the country, just swept the defending national champ, a top 5 team ranked at home, took 2 out of 3 from the Big 12, 2 out of 3 from the Big 10 for whatever that's worth, and didn't play great against Loyola, and took 2 out of 3 against a team that I think is probably not just awful.
Right.
I mean, really, you get that UCA game where they lost 5-4. You flip that, and it's really hard to complain.
It is. Now, I did my thing. I mentioned on the previous podcast that I keep up with barrels. And we had 37 hits over the weekend, but we had 44 barrels.
Goodness.
Boy, if you keep that up, you're not going to lose many. You're not. Even if you just get mediocre pitching.
I was watching the games, and I watched almost every pitch this weekend from TV. I'm not accusing them of anything, but it almost felt like they knew what pitch was coming, like they'd stolen signs or the pitchers were being tipped or something. They were that onto things.
Yeah, that's what happens whenever you get into, it's like anything. It's contagious. The poor hitting was contagious and the good hitting is contagious, and I'm a big believer in that. It'll be interesting to see how they react tomorrow night after the high of this weekend. You go back over to the Horizon Park and play Lipscomb, and they're a decent team. But I want to see Grace Carter pitch some. I want to see one other thing. Leboke looked great, I felt like.
Oh, yeah, I meant to bring that up. He has figured it out since that just some disasters. I think the Minnesota game is the one that really helped him. I know Minnesota's awful, and maybe sometimes you just need an outing like that to build confidence. But he has looked like that four-seamer has just been hard for teams to catch up with. It's not that hard. It's 90-91. But that looked more like the Leboke pre-injury than we have seen.
And then you bring him in behind, Saturday, I guess it was behind Futrell. But if you bring him in behind, say, a Hunter Owen or something, there's no way you can adjust to that when first time through the lineup.
Yeah. All right. One thing on college baseball, and I hate what the game has become right now. We know that the NCAA is going to, or the SEC is going to do more to crank down on baseball tampering and bat tampering. The bat one is going to be a little bit more regimented in how it's enforced. You still look at the numbers and you wonder. My theory is that the bats and the balls are just that hot without any kind of tampering. It just the power numbers you're seeing are unbelievable, and we're playing cold weather baseball right now. I don't know what needs to be done to the balls and the bats off season, but it just seems hard to make good pitches without, in the strike zone without getting punished. I hate the style of play right now with all the runs scored. It's reaching 1998, 99 levels. And I wish, I sure hope, and I'd imagine they will, because the NCAA is reactive, and probably what it'll do is overcorrect, where you get back to 13 and 14 levels where baseball was kind of bad, but the other way, where you had to really kill it, to get it out of any ballpark anywhere, it seemed like. That's my guess as to what happens next. But I just don't like the way – I like the speed of the game, but the offensive trends to me right now, that's just not best baseball in my head.
Well, let me ask you this, and just your opinion on this. Because of the speed, which there is a lot of pitchers, as we well know, that love to take their time and scratch and step off the rubber and this and that, and then deliver the baseball. There's a lot of them can't. They've been doing that since elementary school. Now they can't do it. I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it, having to pitch quicker.
I mean, it certainly could.
Because the location, that way, if it takes you a while to focus in and get your location, and they're making you just throw the baseball and grab it and throw it again, until they get used to that, that could have something to do with it.
Well, there's so much max effort in baseball right now. You got so many guys throwing 95. I mean, used to be 15, 20 years ago, if a guy threw 90 or 91, that was a flamethrower. Now that's the eighth guy on Florida Atlantic staff. So the game has changed, and I do think when you are exerting that much effort to throw a pitch, I would guess you need a little bit more recovery time. Maybe that's part of it, but my guess is the pitchers who can thrive with an off-speed pitch might flourish a little bit more. Certainly Hunter Owen showed that on Friday. But, yeah, that's a good point. I don't have a great answer for you there, but I can't think it's helping.
Yeah, one other thing I did notice from our standpoint, Saturday being I guess if you want to say the worst day offensively, we still had 7 runs and 7 hits. But the umpire Saturday was giving high strikes. It was poor. But and we had been laying off those high pitches all weekend, and then suddenly they became strikes on Saturday. So that was probably the reason we didn't pound out another 10 or 12 runs on Saturday, I think, because it was too big of an adjustment to make after 2 days of a consistent umpires.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of can't blame the umps for being a little more generous with the zone, given how tough it is to pitch right now.
No, I don't have a problem with that either. I'm just saying it was called differently than the first 2 days.
Yeah, I get it. I just wonder what kind of run total. I mean, we're seeing these numbers in March, man. When you're playing in 30 and 40 degree weather and 50s, and it's damp, and I mean, what's this going to look like when it's 70s, 80s, and 90s?
Well, and I'm looking at what Kentucky, who was down near the bottom with us as far as, and again, batting average doesn't mean exactly what it's supposed to mean, but Kentucky was toward the bottom with us, and they just pounded Mississippi State's pitch.
State can't pitch.
Is it their pitching's that poor? I know they've lost like 12 or 13 straight SEC games dating back to last year. They're bound to turn it around and be better than this.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a scary spot to be in, because that fan base is not very fond of Vanderbilt.
No, and going into this weekend, they're I'm sure if the weather's going to be nice and startable, that they'll be out in droves, and you just wonder at some point they got to play better.
Yeah, the pitching is just fallen off a ledge for them the last 2 years.
Is that recruiting, I wonder, or just injuries? I don't know. I don't know enough about them to
the national title team they had two studs. They had Landon Sims and they had the Bednar kid, who you could ride those guys for a lot of innings. They had about 13 or 14 other guys that weren't great. There's one other guy in there too, and I can't remember who it was. They had one other guy that I kind of liked, or maybe it was mostly those two. But they could eat the innings in a 3-game series, and it wasn't like the rest of their guys were outstanding. But when you got 12, 13, 14 of them that you can all throw, an inning or a third of an inning here and there, and you can go lefty righty, you can bring a guy in, and if he doesn't have it that day, you just go on to the next guy. I think that's how they did it. But now, other than maybe Cade Smith, and I haven't checked his numbers lately, it just seems like when they don't have an elite guy like Sims or a Bednar at the top, and I think Smith has struggled some last I checked, it's really fallen off a cliff for them.
Well, for the Commodores, if starting out 3-0, you really want to take advantage of it and hopefully get in the start and win 2 out of 3 there. Then you got Georgia back at home. We could really kind of make some separation with the rest of the conference and the rest of the league if we stay hot and keep swing the bats the way we did this past weekend.
Yeah, no doubt. The schedule was always one that you looked at and you just said, hey, they need to do their damage now because it's going to get harder towards the end. But they have put themselves, if they just keep winning 2 out of 3 and maybe don't get swept, they have put themselves in fantastic position to host a couple of weekends.
They have.
All right. Speaking of pitching, I'm putting myself on a pitch count for the reasons of the voice.
All right.
So I guess we'll end it right here. But any other thoughts? I didn't do the mailbag today just for
that's fine.
Exhaustion.
No,
but anyway.
My only thoughts basketball-wise, you got UAB Wednesday at 6 o'clock. The students will be back, which will add even more to the atmosphere. I figure maybe 10,000 will be in there. That's great news. It's going to take the crowd again to push them through, I think, because I think UAB is the best team that they will have played in this 3-game set. And I hope for those kids they get a reward to get to go to Vegas. And I hope their moms and dads send them a little cash while they're out there.
Luke, appreciate you joining me. We'll do this again next Monday.
Thanks, Chris, and feel better.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We thank our presenting sponsor, Jody Jones DDS. We thank our other sponsors, Sutherland and Belk and MyPerfectFranchise.net. If you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, and that's how we make this work, please email me at chrisley70@gmail.com. We also ask that you subscribe to our website, vandysports.com. That is $99 a year. You get things there that you don't get here. And of course, please rate, review, and subscribe where you see our podcast. That helps us get noticed. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at vandysports.com. Follow me at chrisley70. And finally, subscribe to our Vandy Sports YouTube channel as well. Thank you for listening to the Vandy Sports Podcast, which is part of the 440 Network. I'm your host, Chris Lee. We'll catch you with another episode coming very soon.